Self-reliance is the foundation of true strength. Strength that depends on others is conditional. It exists only as long as support remains available, approval continues, or circumstances stay favorable. Self-reliance removes this dependency. It anchors strength within, making it stable regardless of external change. When you rely on yourself, you are not immune to hardship, but you are prepared to face it without collapse. Self-reliance begins with responsibility. It is the decision to stop waiting for rescue, permission, or validation. This decision is uncomfortable because it removes excuses. When outcomes are owned fully, there is no one else to blame and no one else to credit. This clarity sharpens focus. Energy previously spent on expectation is redirected toward action. Many confuse self-reliance with isolation. They believe it means rejecting help or refusing connection. This is incorrect. Self-reliance is not about pushing others away. It is about not needing them to stand upright. You can accept support without depending on it. You can value companionship without being weakened by its absence. This distinction is where real strength lies. Reliance on others creates fragility. When plans, confidence, or identity are built on external factors, disruption causes instability. Approval can be withdrawn. Resources can disappear. People can leave. When this happens, those without self-reliance experience confusion and fear. Those with it adapt. They adjust strategy without losing direction. Self-reliance develops through skill, discipline, and awareness. Skill reduces dependence by increasing capability. Discipline builds trust with oneself through repeated action. Awareness prevents self-deception and emotional avoidance. Together, these elements form an inner structure that supports you when external structures fail. The process is gradual. Each time you solve a problem without outsourcing responsibility, self-reliance grows. Each time you regulate your emotions instead of reacting impulsively, it strengthens. Each time you follow through on a commitment without being pushed, it deepens. These small acts accumulate into confidence that does not require affirmation. Self-reliance also sharpens judgment. When you do not need others to make decisions for you, you learn to evaluate risk and consequence accurately. You stop being easily influenced by opinion or pressure. This independence of thought is essential for leadership. Even if you never lead anyone but yourself, dependence often disguises itself as connection. Some relationships are maintained not through respect, but through fear of being alone. This fear leads to compromise of values and boundaries. Self-reliance dissolves this fear. When you know you can stand alone, you choose relationships from strength, not need. True strength is calm. It does not rush to prove itself. It does not seek constant reassurance. Self-reliance creates this calm by removing urgency. You are no longer chasing stability, you carry it. This allows patience in decision-making and steadiness under pressure. Self-reliance also increases respect from others, though this is not the goal. People sense when someone is not desperate for approval. Boundaries are taken more seriously. Words carry more weight. Presence becomes grounded. This respect is a byproduct of internal alignment, not a strategy. Challenges are essential in building self-reliance. Comfort delays development. When conditions are easy, reliance on others feels harmless. Difficulty reveals gaps. It forces adaptation. Those who avoid challenge remain dependent. Those who face it develop capability. Each obstacle overcome independently becomes a reference point for future resilience. Self-reliance does not mean you never ask for help. It means you ask strategically, not emotionally. You seek expertise, not rescue. You collaborate without surrendering responsibility. This approach preserves autonomy while allowing growth. A self-reliant person is difficult to manipulate. They are not easily threatened with withdrawal or rejection. Their sense of worth is internally generated. This makes them resistant to pressure and clear in negotiation. They do not overextend to please, nor withdraw to punish. Strength without self-reliance is performative. It looks impressive until tested. When support is removed, it collapses. Strength built on self-reliance endures. It may not be loud or dramatic, but it remains functional under stress. Developing self-reliance requires honesty. You must see where you avoid responsibility, where you rely on distraction, where you wait instead of act. This self-observation is uncomfortable but necessary. Without it, growth is imagined, not real. Self-reliance creates freedom. Freedom from dependency, from emotional volatility, from external control. With this freedom comes accountability. You become the primary architect of your outcomes. This responsibility is heavy, but it is also empowering. When you rely on yourself, trust deepens. You know you will act when needed. You know you will adapt when required. You know you will endure discomfort without breaking. This trust forms the base of confidence that cannot be borrowed or taken away. True strength is not measured by dominance, force, or control over others. It is measured by the ability to remain steady, capable, and aligned regardless of circumstance. Self-reliance makes this possible by ensuring that your foundation is internal, disciplined, and resilient, able to support you through uncertainty, loss, pressure, and change without needing external permission to stand strong. Your mind is your first battlefield every morning, the first war you must fight before the sun rises and the world demands your attention. Before anyone calls your name, before the notifications light up your phone, before the weight of the day tries to press down on your shoulders, the battle begins inside you. You wake, and immediately 1,000 thoughts flood your consciousness. Some whisper excuses, some scream fears, and some linger like shadows of regret from yesterday. That is the first enemy. It is not outside. It is not the traffic jam, the deadlines, or the people who doubt you. The first opponent is in your head, and it is relentless. It will try to convince you to stay small, to remain comfortable, to retreat into the familiarity of weakness. It will remind you of failures you have survived, of pain you have endured, and it will suggest that survival is enough. But survival is not the standard. Discipline is. Strength is. Growth is. The battlefield is quiet, but it is intense, because every thought you allow to dominate your mind is a soldier in the army you command. Every morning when you rise, you choose which soldiers will march forward and which will be dismissed to the shadows. You choose courage over fear, action over hesitation, responsibility over blame, and clarity over confusion. That choice is the first victory of the day. It is the victory that determines whether you are a master of your life or a prisoner of circumstance. You cannot postpone this battle. It does not wait for the perfect time, the perfect mood, or the perfect motivation. Motivation is a fleeting ally, unreliable and weak. Discipline is your true weapon, forged in the quiet repetition of hard decisions and wielded in the moments when your mind screams for comfort. Every morning, you wake to a choice. Will you obey the chaos of your mind, or will you command it? Will you allow yourself to be dragged into old patterns, repeating yesterday's mistakes, reliving the doubts that have haunted you, or will you rise above them and set the tone for the hours that follow? Your mind will resist. It will insist on ease. It will glorify delay. It will celebrate excuses. The softest whisper of, "I cannot," can dismantle the fortress of your potential if you give it attention. That is why vigilance is necessary. That is why every morning demands a statement of intention, a declaration of war against weakness, a commitment to strength that no one else can make for you. Your thoughts are weapons. Your beliefs are armor. The discipline you enforce on your mind is the strategy that allows you to survive the storms ahead. Consider how easy it is to let your mind wander into negativity, how effortless it feels to indulge fear, how natural it seems to dwell on uncertainty. That is the battlefield speaking. The enemy is cunning, often dressed in familiarity. It will disguise procrastination as rest, fear as wisdom, laziness as necessity. It will show you yesterday's failures and exaggerate tomorrow's impossibilities. To fight effectively, you must recognize these deceptions. You must train your mind to distinguish between real threats and imagined barriers. You must strengthen your awareness until you can see the patterns before they trap you. Every morning, you have the chance to sharpen this skill, to exercise this mental muscle, to step into the clarity of your own command. The battlefield is not won in grand gestures alone. It is won in small, deliberate actions that seem insignificant until they accumulate into power. To decide to rise from bed immediately, to resist the temptation of delay, to take the first step toward your goals before the world demands your attention. These are victories. To silence the inner critic for one moment and replace its voice with purpose is a victory. To choose to feed your mind with strength, with focus, with truth, rather than indulgence, distraction, or complaint is a victory. The mind is a battlefield of choices, and each choice is a skirmish. Some days you will win, many other days you may only win one. But the battle itself is essential. To retreat is to surrender. To ignore the first war of the day is to allow chaos to dictate your path. Your mind will try to convince you that you are not ready for battle. It will argue that the day is too long, that the obstacles are too great, that the weight of expectation is too heavy. It will tell you that the comfort of sleep, the illusion of delay, the quiet surrender of mediocrity are easier than the effort required to dominate your own consciousness. But listen carefully. That voice is not your true self. That voice is the enemy masquerading as you. The self capable of mastery, of courage, of relentless progress is quiet but persistent. It waits for acknowledgement. It waits for command. It will rise when you rise. It will act when you act. The first victory of the day is to summon this self, to take control, to silence doubt, and to decide that no thought will overpower you unless you allow it to. Morning is a proving ground. It is not sentimental. It is not gentle. It does not reward half-hearted efforts or fleeting inspiration. It tests the mind, and only the disciplined survive. Each sunrise is a reminder that life itself is a challenge, and the measure of strength is not how you respond to comfort, but how you respond to resistance. To master the mind in the early hours is to carry power into the hours that follow. The battles at work, in relationships, in personal growth, in your health, are reflections of the battle you fight first. The mind that succumbs to fear, doubt, and distraction will project that weakness outward. The mind that is sharp, disciplined, and vigilant will turn obstacles into opportunities, challenges into stepping stones, and chaos into clarity. Every thought allowed to dominate your morning has a consequence. Every moment spent in indecision is a moment lost. Every surrender to comfort strengthens the enemy within. To be victorious, you must treat your mind like the most sacred battlefield. You must enter it with purpose, with courage, and with unshakable discipline. You must train it relentlessly, feed it with clarity, silence the noise, and make it obey. Because the first battle determines the tone of every battle that follows. The first battle decides whether you will live by accident or by design, whether you will be led or whether you will lead, whether you will stumble through the day or step through it as a commander of your own destiny. Discipline beats motivation every single time because motivation is fleeting, fragile, and easily swayed by circumstance. But discipline is constant, unwavering, and forged through choice. Motivation is a spark that ignites briefly and then vanishes the moment resistance appears, the moment life grows uncomfortable, the moment challenges rise. It is fragile because it depends on feelings, on desire, on the unpredictable moods of the mind. Some days motivation arrives like a visitor, warm and inviting, promising action and progress, and you feel unstoppable. Other days it does not come, and suddenly the same task that yesterday felt exciting now feels impossible. Motivation cannot be trusted. It cannot be relied upon to carry you forward consistently. Discipline, on the other hand, does not wait for feelings. Discipline does not require inspiration. Discipline is the choice to act, to do what must be done, regardless of how you feel in the moment, regardless of how your mind protests, regardless of the resistance that life throws at you. Motivation is the wind. Discipline is the rudder that directs the ship through storms. Discipline beats motivation because it transforms inconsistency into results, because it takes ordinary humans and turns them into forces capable of extraordinary achievement. Every great accomplishment, every mastery of craft, every transformation of self was built not on fleeting enthusiasm, but on relentless discipline. The body of an athlete, the mind of a scholar, the vision of a leader, the skill of a warrior, all were sculpted in the hours when motivation was absent and discipline carried the weight. Discipline is not glamorous. It does not shout. It does not feel exciting. It is often quiet, invisible, unnoticed by the world. It manifests in the repetition of small actions that day after day accumulate into extraordinary results. The person who writes consistently, studies diligently, trains daily, meditates regularly, or practices relentlessly, does so not because they always feel like it, but because they have chosen discipline as a way of life. Motivation may get you started, but discipline keeps you moving when every fiber of your being screams to stop. Discipline beats motivation because it does not negotiate with excuses. Motivation allows excuses to sneak in, to rationalize delay, to justify inaction. When motivation fades, excuses rush to claim the void, telling you that you are too tired, too busy, too unprepared, too unlucky, too distracted, too this or that. Discipline ignores excuses. Discipline acts regardless. Discipline recognizes that the world is not fair, that life will not wait, and that waiting for the perfect feeling is a trap. Every day presents the same choice. Do it or don't. Discipline chooses to do it every single time. It chooses action over comfort, consistency over spontaneity, results over emotion, mastery over desire. Discipline beats motivation because it is a decision, and decisions do not waver with feelings. Motivation is conditional, dependent on circumstance, dependent on emotion. Discipline is unconditional, independent of circumstance, independent of mood. Motivation says, I want to do this because I feel like it, while discipline says, I will do this because it must be done. Motivation is seductive but weak, convincing you that passion is enough to carry you, but then abandoning you when obstacles appear. Discipline does not abandon. It does not rely on passion. It relies on habit, on principle, on commitment. Discipline beats motivation because it is a structure, a framework for success that does not collapse when desire fades. It is the foundation that supports every achievement, every goal, every dream that is realized in reality rather than remaining a fantasy. To live a life led by motivation is to live at the mercy of emotions, to rise and fall with every whim, to begin and abandon projects, to chase inspiration and suffer frustration when it disappears. To live a life led by discipline is to live by choice, to forge your own path, to master the self, to act with consistency and purpose regardless of circumstance. Discipline beats motivation because it is predictable, reliable, and powerful. The disciplined person does not wait for confidence. They build confidence through repeated action. They do not wait for clarity. They create clarity through focus and effort. They do not wait for external validation. They validate themselves through results. Discipline beats motivation because it transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary through repetition and consistency. Every habit formed, every ritual maintained, every task completed when it was inconvenient or unwanted compounds into a force that cannot be stopped. Motivation is a single gust of wind. Discipline is the mountain that stands unmoved against storms. Motivation may spark brilliance for a moment, but discipline builds empires, bodies, minds, and legacies over time. The artist who paints daily regardless of inspiration produces masterpieces. The athlete who trains regardless of desire achieves peak performance. The leader who makes tough decisions regardless of comfort builds teams and nations. Discipline is the true power behind achievement because it does not depend on luck, circumstance, or emotion. It depends on the strength of character and the commitment to act. Every morning, the choice is the same. Will you wait for motivation to appear? Or will you take action regardless? Will you allow the fleeting surge of desire to dictate your day? Or will you wield discipline as a weapon, a tool, a principle, a constant force that carries you forward no matter what? Discipline beats motivation because it is not a feeling, it is a practice, a standard, a way of life. Motivation may inspire for a day, a week, a moment, but discipline sustains over years, decades, and lifetimes. The disciplined mind, body, And soul do not surrender to circumstance, they conquer it. They show up when no one is watching. They persist when all seems lost. They act when the world hesitates. Discipline beats motivation because it cultivates resilience, endurance, and mastery. Motivation may falter when challenges arise, but discipline persists through discomfort, through fatigue, through doubt, through fear. Motivation may spark ambition, but discipline builds achievement. Motivation may encourage dreams, but discipline realizes them. The person who relies on motivation is at the mercy of emotion. The person who relies on discipline is the master of their destiny. Every day, every moment, every choice is a chance to practice discipline, to reinforce the habits, to strengthen the character, to assert control over your own life, to act when you would rather wait, to rise when you would rather fall, to persist when you would rather quit, and to achieve results that motivation alone could never deliver. Pain is not an enemy. It is a teacher, a guide, a force that strips away illusions and exposes the truths we often try to hide from ourselves. Pain comes without warning, without apology, and without concern for timing. It arrives as a consequence of life's relentless demands, or as the reflection of our own choices, or as the inevitable collision between expectation and reality. At first, it feels like an adversary. It feels like something to be avoided, resisted, or denied. It is uncomfortable, sometimes unbearable, and it triggers every instinct to run, to hide, to retreat. That instinct is natural, but it is not the path to strength. Pain is not a curse to be escaped. It is the forge in which resilience, courage, and wisdom are shaped. It is a mirror that shows what we are made of, a test that measures how much we are willing to endure, a teacher that speaks in the language of discomfort and challenge. The more we resist it, the sharper it becomes. The more we run from it, the more persistent it grows. The moment we stop fleeing and begin to listen, the moment we stop judging and begin to understand, pain begins to reveal its lessons. Pain teaches attention. It makes us notice what we might otherwise overlook. It draws our gaze to the weaknesses we have ignored, the patterns we have repeated, the choices we have avoided confronting. When life hurts, it is not simply an arbitrary assault. It is pointing us toward what matters, toward what requires change, toward what we must acknowledge in ourselves. Pain exposes the cracks in character, the unexamined habits, the fears that whisper behind our bravado. It teaches us to focus, to analyze, to confront reality without sugarcoating it. Those who embrace pain learn to see the truth, and the truth is the foundation of growth. The moment we label pain as the enemy, we blind ourselves to the knowledge it offers. The moment we resist it entirely, we deny ourselves the opportunity to strengthen the mind, body, and spirit. Pain teaches endurance. Every difficult moment, every wound, every loss, every struggle is a chance to cultivate stamina, patience, and persistence. The heart trembles, the mind rebels, yet enduring teaches the discipline that motivation alone cannot. It teaches that there is a limit to what comfort can produce, and that real strength is forged in discomfort. Pain tests our commitment, our courage, and our capacity to act in the face of difficulty. To embrace pain is not to seek it unnecessarily, but to recognize that avoidance does not produce growth, only stagnation. Endurance is a muscle, and pain is the weight that strengthens it. The more we confront it, the more capable we become of navigating life's inevitable challenges without collapsing under pressure. Pain teaches humility. It reminds us that life is larger than our immediate desires, that our control is limited, that arrogance is a weakness. It strips away pretense and forces a confrontation with our vulnerabilities, limitations, and imperfections. The proud, the overconfident, the careless, all are humbled by pain, for it is impartial, unbiased, and unrelenting. Those who accept its lessons gain a perspective that the comfortable never experience. They learn to respect the fragility of life, to honor the effort it takes to endure, and to recognize the strength in others that they might have once overlooked. Humility does not weaken, it strengthens, for it allows us to grow, to learn, and to adapt. Pain teaches choice. It presents a crossroad at every moment of suffering, to collapse or to rise, to curse or to learn, to retreat or to advance. It gives us the opportunity to practice mastery over our reactions, to exercise the power of our will, and to choose how we engage with reality. Pain does not remove freedom. It clarifies it. In its presence, we discover the extent of our agency, the depth of our courage, and the capacity to transform adversity into opportunity. Every choice made in response to pain shapes character more effectively than every comfort ever enjoyed. Pain teaches that action, not avoidance, is the pathway to growth. Pain teaches perspective. It separates the essential from the trivial, the meaningful from the fleeting. When we are confronted with suffering, the distractions that once seemed so important lose their weight. Complaints, petty arguments, superficial ambitions, and fleeting discomforts fade into insignificance. Pain teaches us to value what matters: integrity, perseverance, relationships, purpose, and the pursuit of mastery. It reveals the dimensions of strength we would never explore if life remained soft and comfortable. Those who learn from pain develop clarity, a vision refined through experience, a focus sharpened by adversity. Pain teaches gratitude. It makes us recognize the moments of relief, the fleeting comfort, the triumphs, and the successes with heightened appreciation. Joy is not complete without the shadow of struggle. Satisfaction is not profound without the depth of challenge. The mind that has never confronted pain may take blessings for granted, but the mind that has wrestled with suffering cherishes each victory, each moment of reprieve, each achievement. Pain fosters empathy, compassion, and connection, for those who have suffered are capable of understanding the suffering of others in ways that comfort cannot teach. Pain teaches growth. It forces adaptation, innovation, and evolution. The discomfort that initially wounds us eventually transforms us. It pushes us to seek new strategies, to develop resilience, to refine skills, to rethink assumptions. Without pain, there is stagnation. Without struggle, there is complacency. Pain provokes action, ignites resourcefulness, and demands transformation. It compels us to step beyond the boundaries of comfort, to explore capabilities we might have denied ourselves, and to confront the limitations we once accepted as fixed. Every lesson learned through suffering becomes a tool, a weapon, a resource that strengthens the self and prepares it for the challenges ahead. Pain is not something to fear, avoid, or suppress. It is a constant companion in life, an unavoidable presence that, if understood, becomes one of the most effective teachers we can encounter. The mind that resists pain shrinks from challenge, stagnates in safety, and misses the profound growth that suffering delivers. The body that fears pain avoids the conditioning that produces strength and endurance. The heart that flees from pain cannot develop courage, compassion, or connection. Pain is impartial, indifferent, and relentless, yet it is also a guide, a mentor, and a source of profound wisdom that shapes every aspect of life, revealing truths that comfort could never teach. You are responsible for your thoughts, your actions, and your future, even when it feels like the world is conspiring against you. It begins in the mind, because the quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your life. Every belief you nurture, every assumption you accept, every story you tell yourself becomes the lens through which you see reality and the engine that drives your decisions. Thoughts are the architects of action, and action is the architect of destiny. To blame circumstances, other people, or luck is to surrender power to forces outside your control. The moment you realize that every choice you make, every word you speak, every action you take, no matter how small, matters, you begin to reclaim authority over your own existence. Responsibility is not a burden, it is freedom. The freedom to shape your life rather than drift through it as a passive observer. To understand that you are accountable for your thoughts is to recognize that negativity, doubt, and fear are your enemies, and that the mind you cultivate today will determine the opportunities you can seize tomorrow. Thoughts are deceptively powerful. A single thought can lift you or crush you. It can inspire courage or breed hesitation. It can ignite a fire within you or extinguish every spark of ambition. To claim responsibility for your thoughts is to guard the gate of your mind, to recognize that what you entertain internally will inevitably manifest externally. When you allow worry, self-pity, or resentment to take root, your actions begin to reflect those weaknesses. When you cultivate clarity, focus, and determination, your actions align with purpose, and the path to your goals becomes visible even in chaos. Responsibility begins here, in the quiet corners of the mind, in the moments when no one is watching, when the world has not yet demanded your energy, when the choice to empower or undermine yourself is yours alone. Actions are the bridge between thought and reality. They are the proof of intention and the measure of character. It is not enough to think positively, to dream vividly, or to wish for better circumstances. You must act. Every step you take, every habit you form, every decision you make contributes to the trajectory of your life. You cannot control every outcome, but you can control whether you show up, whether you persist, whether you execute. To deny responsibility for your actions is to accept the chaos of chance, to surrender the possibility of mastery, to live a life dictated by external forces rather than internal will. Actions are a reflection of the mind. When thoughts are disciplined and purposeful, actions are precise, deliberate, and powerful. When thoughts are scattered or negative, actions falter, procrastinate, and dissipate energy. Responsibility for your actions is a daily exercise in courage, integrity, and focus, because each moment offers the choice to act according to your values or to drift with convenience and comfort. Your future is the cumulative product of your thoughts and actions. It is not a distant abstraction, but the direct consequence of decisions made moment by moment. Every choice shapes the trajectory of your life in ways both immediate and unseen. To claim responsibility for your future is to understand that no one else can build it for you, protect it for you, or guarantee it for you. The people around you, the economy, the luck you encounter, and the opportunities presented are not responsible for your growth, your mastery, or your fulfillment. You are. The moment you internalize this truth, you step out of the role of victim and into the role of creator. You begin to approach challenges differently, to treat obstacles as opportunities, to measure progress with the standard of effort rather than outcome, and to invest energy where it has the greatest impact, in your mind, your habits, and your choices. Responsibility demands honesty. It requires you to confront uncomfortable truths, to acknowledge your mistakes, to recognize where you have faltered, and to refuse to rationalize failure. It is easy to blame others when things go wrong, to claim circumstance as an excuse to settle into denial. But this path leads only to stagnation. The person who takes responsibility looks inward first, asking what they can do, what they can improve, what they can control. They understand that change begins with self, that empowerment begins with action, and that mastery begins with the relentless refusal to surrender agency. Responsibility is not self-criticism, it is self-ownership. It is the recognition that you hold the pen that writes the story of your life, and every thought, action, and decision is a line in that narrative. Responsibility cultivates resilience. When you understand that you are accountable for your mind, your behavior, and your direction, setbacks lose their power to define you. Failure becomes information, mistakes become teachers, and adversity becomes training. You learn that the only true limits are the ones you accept, that surrender is a choice, and that persistence is a habit formed through conscious decision. Responsibility for your thoughts means you can redirect negativity into strategy. Responsibility for your actions means you can correct errors and act decisively. Responsibility for your future means you can plan, execute, and evolve rather than drift. It is through this lens that life becomes a series of challenges designed to be mastered rather than endured, a series of opportunities for growth rather than trials of luck. Responsibility also demands courage. It is far easier to blame, to complain, to avoid, to wait for someone else to act. It is far harder to take ownership, to make difficult decisions, to confront fear, to persist despite doubt, to sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term gain. But courage is the companion of responsibility, and through them comes power. Power not over others, but over yourself, over the chaos that threatens, over the internal inertia that resists action, over the future that is not yet written. To claim responsibility is to declare to yourself that your destiny is yours to shape, that no one else holds the key, and that every moment you hesitate, you forfeit a measure of control that could have been claimed. Responsibility transforms perspective. It changes how you view problems, setbacks, and successes. When you understand that your mind, your actions, and your future are yours to command, excuses fade, whining becomes irrelevant, and energy is focused entirely on what can be influenced. You begin to see patterns where others see randomness, opportunities where others see obstacles, solutions where others see barriers. Responsibility sharpens awareness, strengthens character, and aligns intention with execution. It teaches patience without passivity, courage without recklessness, and focus without rigidity. It is the principle that converts potential into reality and dreams into outcomes. You are responsible for your thoughts, for your actions, and for your future. And this truth is absolute. No circumstance can diminish it. No person can assume it for you, and no event can override it. It is the foundation of empowerment, the path to mastery, and the source of enduring freedom. To deny it is to drift, to surrender, to stagnate. To embrace it is to seize authority over life itself, to forge a path with purpose, and to live deliberately. Every moment presents the opportunity to practice this responsibility, to reinforce it, and to act in alignment with it, because each thought ignored, each action avoided, and each choice deferred is a moment of potential wasted and a trajectory left unclaimed. Consistency creates power, not talent, because talent without repetition, without effort, without deliberate action is a promise unfulfilled, a seed that never grows, a flame that flickers and dies. Talent is admired, celebrated, and envied, but it is not sufficient. Talent can open doors, attract attention, and make beginnings easier, but it cannot sustain growth, produce mastery, or guarantee achievement. Consistency is the engine that transforms potential into reality. It is the daily showing up, the repeated effort, the disciplined action taken when no one is watching, when excitement fades, when motivation disappears, when obstacles rise, and when doubt creeps in. Talent may get you started, but consistency carries you forward. And it is in that forward motion maintained relentlessly over time that true power is created. Without consistency, talent is like a brilliant arrow shot into the dark with no aim, no trajectory, no follow-through. With consistency, even the smallest skill can be amplified into mastery. Even the most modest ability can become formidable, and even the humblest beginning can become extraordinary. Consistency creates power because it compounds. Each small, deliberate action adds weight to the next. Each effort strengthens the next effort. Each day of persistence shapes habits, and habits shape outcomes. Talent might allow a person to excel sporadically, to produce moments of brilliance, to achieve bursts of recognition, but without the rhythm of daily work, these moments fade, leaving only unfulfilled potential. Consistency turns effort into momentum, momentum into skill, and skill into mastery. It is a force that does not rely on emotion, that does not fluctuate with desire, that does not crumble when faced with adversity. It does not ask whether you feel like acting, whether conditions are perfect, or whether inspiration has arrived. It simply requires action, repeated focus, repeated commitment, and the courage to continue even when results are not immediately visible. Power is created not by talent alone, but by the ability to endure, to persist, and to refine. It is the person who trains day after day, who studies day after day, who shows up for practice, for effort, for work, whether celebrated or unseen, who develops strength that talent alone cannot produce. Talent without consistency is like a river with no current, a machine with no fuel, a sword that is never sharpened. It exists, but it cannot achieve its purpose. Consistency transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary outcomes. It allows skills to deepen, understanding to expand, resilience to form, and confidence to grow. It is the steady drumbeat that sets the pace for success, the rhythm that aligns ambition with action, the quiet, persistent force that eventually overwhelms obstacles, doubt, and competitors who may rely solely on talent. Consistency is also the equalizer. It allows those with less raw talent, but greater persistence to surpass those who rely on natural ability alone. The world is full of talented individuals who never reach their potential because they lack the discipline to act day after day, to endure discomfort, to repeat, to refine, and to improve. Meanwhile, those who show up consistently, who accept small, incremental progress, who dedicate themselves to repetition, often achieve results far beyond what talent alone could promise. Consistency is patient, it is steady, it is unglamorous, and it is ultimately unstoppable. It rewards persistence, preparation, and practice more reliably than talent ever can. Consistency creates power because it builds momentum that talent cannot match. Talent may spark excitement, but momentum moves mountains. Each repetition, each commitment, each habit reinforces the next. Skills sharpen, intuition strengthens, confidence deepens, and results accumulate. What seems slow, insignificant, or routine in the moment becomes unstoppable over time. The disciplined person does not panic when results are delayed. They understand that the accumulation of effort, repeated consistently, is the true source of strength. Talent may provide immediate visibility, applause, or advantage, but power born from consistency grows quietly, steadily, and unshakably. Consistency also teaches resilience. By acting repeatedly, you become accustomed to struggle, to fatigue, to resistance, to setbacks, and to failure. You develop the mental fortitude required to keep going when challenges arise, when conditions are unfavorable, when progress seems invisible. Talent may impress initially, but it does not prepare you for the grind, the obstacles, or the long-term endurance required to achieve greatness. Consistency develops resilience because it forces the body, mind, and spirit to adapt, to strengthen, and to endure. Each day of deliberate effort is training, not just in skill, but in patience, persistence, and tenacity. Consistency creates identity. It shapes who you are more than talent ever will. The person who acts consistently becomes someone known for reliability, for dedication, for mastery. Habits formed through repetition define character, and character defines destiny. Talent may be noticed, but consistency earns respect, commands trust, and builds influence. People may admire talent, but they follow consistency. Talent can impress temporarily, but consistency builds legacies that endure. It is the daily, repeated commitment to action, no matter how small, no matter how inconvenient, no matter how unrewarding in the short term, that determines who achieves power and who fades away. Consistency also transforms failures into lessons. Talent may stumble when challenged or tested because it is dependent on raw ability rather than developed skill. Consistency, on the other hand, absorbs failure, learns from it, adjusts, and continues. Each setback becomes feedback, each obstacle a challenge to adapt, and each mistake an opportunity to reinforce the habit of improvement. Talent may falter when expectations rise, but consistency endures, learns and strengthens. Over time, the disciplined person who acts repeatedly develops the power to navigate complexity, to overcome adversity, and to create outcomes that talent alone could never sustain. Consistency creates power, not talent, because it is deliberate, it is patient, it is persistent, and it is unyielding. Talent may inspire admiration, but consistency produces results. Talent may open doors, but consistency keeps them open. Talent may provide potential, but consistency converts potential into reality. It is the quiet, relentless, daily effort that multiplies small advantages, builds skills, strengthens resilience, shapes character, and ultimately produces outcomes that appear magical to those who rely solely on raw talent. It is through consistency that ordinary individuals become extraordinary, that potential transforms into mastery, that ambition becomes achievement, and that power emerges where talent alone could never reach. Inner control is the highest form of strength because it is the mastery of self in a world designed to provoke, distract, and destabilize. It is not the ability to lift weights, conquer enemies, or dominate circumstances. Those are external measures of power, fleeting and often unreliable. True strength begins within, in the quiet command of thoughts, emotions, and impulses, in the ability to remain unshaken when chaos surrounds you, when the world presses against you, when fear and desire pull in opposite directions. Inner control is the foundation upon which every other form of power rests. Without it, talent is squandered, discipline is fragile, ambition falters, and resilience crumbles. It is the anchor that holds the mind steady in storms, the rudder that guides action through uncertainty, the silent force that determines whether life bends you or you bend life to your will. Those who understand this cultivate self-mastery above all else, knowing that external victories are temporary and visible, but inner mastery is permanent and invisible, and it shapes every action, every choice, and every outcome that follows. Inner control begins with the mind. Every thought you entertain, every fear you indulge, every doubt you nurture shapes the decisions you make, the actions you take, and the trajectory of your life. To control the mind is to observe it without judgment, to recognize impulses without surrendering to them, and to choose intentionally which thoughts to act upon and which to dismiss. The mind is a battlefield where desire, fear, and ego constantly compete, and victory is achieved not through force or suppression, but through awareness, discipline, and deliberate choice. A mind governed by impulse is weak, reactive, and easily manipulated. A mind governed by inner control is strong, responsive, and strategic. It does not act hastily. It does not react to provocation. It does not become enslaved to emotion. It chooses clarity over confusion, patience over haste, and reason over instinct when instinct is misaligned with purpose. Inner control transforms the mind from a chaotic instrument into a precise tool capable of navigating complexity with calm, precision, and authority. Emotion is another arena of inner control. The untrained mind is often a servant to fleeting feelings. Anger erupts, fear dominates, desire compels, and sadness overwhelms. Those who mistake emotional intensity for strength are often the weakest, for their decisions are driven by reaction rather than intention. True strength lies in the ability to feel deeply yet remain composed, to acknowledge emotion without being controlled by it, to allow impulses to pass without surrender, and to act from principle rather than passion. Inner control tempers the storm of emotion with reason and awareness, allowing a person to respond rather than react, to build rather than destroy, and to persevere rather than crumble. This emotional mastery creates resilience, for life is filled with uncertainty, disappointment, and provocation. Those who can govern their inner state remain unshaken, adaptable, and capable of action, when others are paralyzed by their feelings. Impulse is a third domain in which inner control asserts its supremacy. The world tempts constantly, distractions abound, indulgence beckons. Shortcuts promise ease, and procrastination whispers comfort. Strength without inner control may allow temporary victories, but it falters at the first test of patience or discipline. Inner control teaches restraint, guiding behavior even when desire is strongest, teaching that true power lies in choosing long-term benefit over short-term gratification, in acting consistently with values rather than succumbing to momentary urges. It is the difference between a life of chaos and a life of mastery, between fleeting success and enduring achievement. The person who has conquered impulse can endure hardship, resist temptation, and pursue goals relentlessly. Because their energy is directed rather than dissipated, their focus sharp rather than scattered, their actions deliberate rather than reactive. Inner control also manifests in the ability to navigate external circumstances without being dictated by them. Life is unpredictable, people disappoint, opportunities vanish, expectations collide, and chaos arises without warning. Those who depend on external conditions for stability, confidence, or direction are weak, for the world is not constant. Inner control is the shield that protects against external volatility. It allows a person to remain centered in the face of adversity, to make clear decisions under pressure, and to maintain purpose when distractions and disruptions arise. The storm may rage, but the individual anchored in inner control does not sway. Strength without this discipline is unreliable. It is dependent on fortune, environment, and circumstance. Strength born of inner control is unshakable, for it originates from a place no one can touch, influence, or diminish. Self-awareness is an essential aspect of inner control. To master the self, one must first observe it honestly, acknowledging weaknesses, biases, and tendencies without judgment or avoidance. Without this awareness, control is superficial. It can be lost at the first provocation. Inner control requires rigorous self-examination, reflection, and honesty. It is the recognition that change, growth, and mastery begin from within, and that no external achievement can substitute for the discipline of the inner life. Through this awareness, a person understands their triggers, manages their responses, and aligns their actions with their highest values. Inner control is strengthened not through denial or repression, but through conscious understanding, deliberate practice, and relentless attention to the workings of the self. Inner control is the highest form of strength because it is the origin of all other forms of power. Physical skill without inner control is wasted effort, vulnerable to distraction, fear, and weakness. Talent without inner control produces brilliance intermittently, but never mastery. Discipline without inner control is mechanical and brittle, susceptible to collapse when tested. Leadership, influence, and achievement all require the quiet strength of inner mastery to sustain themselves. The individual who governs mind, emotion, and impulse, who acts with awareness, restraint, and purpose, wields a power that cannot be undermined by circumstance, provocation, or adversity. It is a power invisible to the eye, but palpable in effect, shaping outcomes, commanding respect, and producing results that others, dependent on external measures of strength, can never achieve. Inner control transforms challenges into opportunities. It converts pressure into clarity, discomfort into learning, and chaos into strategy. It allows the individual to act decisively when others hesitate, to remain calm when others panic, and to endure when others break. The person anchored in inner control becomes self-sufficient, resilient, and formidable, not through aggression or force, but through the quiet mastery of the inner world. It is a strength that persists regardless of circumstance, that grows through reflection, discipline, and deliberate practice, and that ultimately defines the trajectory of a life lived with purpose, precision, and power.